Hello and welcome to Mississippi Insight. I'm Byron Brown. Thank you for joining us. This week, Mississippi voters have spoken, and Governor Tate Reeves has won a second term in a low turnout election against Brandon Presley. What were the critical factors in the incumbent's win Tuesday night? We'll hear from our election night analysis, Russ, Latino, and Senator John Horhn. Also, former Republican Governor Haley Barbour offers his observations on the 2023 race. And a new voice of analysis, Millsaps professor Eric Schmidt offers his take and explains how many young people think about today's political environment. Those stories and more are straight ahead this Sunday on Mississippi Insight. All 8 Republicans holding state office in Mississippi can look forward to a new term, according to the latest unofficial vote counts from Tuesday night. These general elections were marked by relatively low voter turnout. About 793,000 votes were cast in the governor's race. For instance, about 885,000 people voted in the 2019 contest between Reeves and Jim Hood. And much like Hood, Commissioner Presley could muster just 47% of Tuesday's vote. The governor won with 52%, according to unofficial counts. Gwendolyn Gray dropped her independent candidacy after state ballots had been printed. She picked up a little over 1%. We watched the race unfold Tuesday night with some expert analysis, thanks to Magnolia Tribune publisher Russ Latino and Democratic State Senator John Horhn. Talk about what you're seeing so far in those numbers.
So I've been looking at what happened in 2019 between Governor Reeves and Attorney General Jim Hood compared to tonight, and what you see is a very eerily similar pattern that's holding across the state. And the pockets of votes that are available for Mr. Presley are diminishing. There are only a couple of counties out that he's likely to carry and pick up 5,000 to 6,000 votes. There's a chunk of Hinds County that's clearly still out. He might pick up another 25,000 to 30,000 votes there. But what you're seeing for Reeves is along the Mississippi Gulf Coast, there's still big pockets of votes. And there are 4 counties that he won by decent margins that have yet to report along South Mississippi and the Pine Belt. And so it's looking very difficult for Brandon Presley to win the election tonight.
And Senator Horhn, you're feeling very similar, seeing a similarity in 2019.
Most of the Delta is in, which Hood was counting on. What is not in is Hinds County. And I don't see Hinds County having enough votes to make up the gains that Reeves is making in other parts of the state. I'm not quite ready to call it yet, but it's not looking good for the Presley campaign, in my opinion.
Will it be a closer race than it was in 2019, or do you think it's going to be about the same?
I think it's going to be a very similar total. What you see in some of the counties that had higher vote totals before is that even though the votes aren't as high as what they were in 19, the margins are the same. And so my expectation is that you've got a 51, 52 point style race in Reeves' favor. And that probably assumes that, Commissioner Presley picks up 20 to 30,000 votes in Hinds County.
Yeah, I think he'll get to 20 or 30,000, maybe even more than that in Hinds County, but is it enough to make up where he's lost in other parts of the state?
What about those absentee ballots? Those still have to be an affidavit.
Yeah, well, that's a factor, but I don't see it being a deciding factor.
Yeah, and absentees were up slightly this year. So you had about a 5% increase over 2019 absentee levels. If you look at where those absentee ballots came in, about 33,000 of them came in counties that Reeves had won in 19, and 20 some odd thousand came in, like 22,000 came in counties that Hood had won in 19. And so that small percentage, and given the division of where they're coming from, probably makes it unlikely if you've got a 4 or 5 point race that it could, anyway alter the outcome.
How will the fact that Hinds County had a lot of issues with the ballots, the wrong ballots being delivered to some, ballots late being delivered, extensions on the time you could vote, will we see that play out in the courts?
The way it's looking right now, it probably won't. If the numbers keep going the way they're going and the percentages keep going the way they're going, it's a moot point.
Will we get a decision tonight, or do you think we're going to wait till tomorrow before we get a decision?
I suspect that within the next hour, you'll see people start to make some calls. I think there are a couple pockets that people probably want to see before they jump out on that ledge. I know Cook Political Report, as an example, has already called it for Reeves. Now, that's an out-of-state outfit, but I suspect that you'll start to see people making the call.
Yeah, the only reason you probably won't is if the Hinds County's numbers are slow to come in overnight.
Does this say something for Democrats in Mississippi, that they can run and be successful?
I think so. I think people should be encouraged who are Democrats by this race. Brandon Presley took it to Tate Reeves and put the fear of God in Reeves. I mean, I've never seen him in the kind of mode he's been in the last few months. So I would be encouraged as the Democratic Party that there's opportunity for growth.
Yeah, and I said it today, I think he's run a very good campaign, a very message-disciplined campaign. They did the blocking and tackling correct when it comes to campaigns. I think what it tells you is that Mississippi is a Republican state, right? And so even when you've got somebody who runs a very good campaign and is a good retail politician, it may just not be enough, at least at this point in time, to overcome the natural sort of inclination towards voting for that R.
Yeah, and there's no telling the impact of the power of incumbency. You know, you look at the legislature, there are very few contested races in the legislature. Incumbents have the authority, if you will. All the statewide races have gone to Republicans, with this gubernatorial race still up in the air, but it looks like it may go to Reeves.
Presley conceded to Reeves just before 11 o'clock Tuesday night, while he was down by about 50,000 votes. He stood with his wife, Caitlin, as he thanked supporters in Jackson.
I respect the decision of the voters of Mississippi, because that's what makes our democracy what it actually is. I want to take a moment and thank everybody that voted for me tonight. We came up just a little short. It's not lost on me the hundreds of thousands of folks who went into the ballot box and cast their ballot for me, and how appreciative I am to them for taking that time and for getting up and spending the gas and taking off from work and doing the effort it takes to go vote. And I sincerely appreciate every bit of their support. You people in Mississippi, on both sides of the aisle, both Republicans, Democrats, and Independents, represent the good parts of our state. You represent the good parts of who we are, and I will always be appreciative of that. I know that you're as disappointed tonight as I am. Adlai Stevenson said it hurts too much to laugh, and I'm too old to cry. And so I understand what he meant. But this campaign was never just about me. And I tried to make that clear in the 11 months that we've been in this race. It's not just been about me. It's been about Mississippi as a whole. And we still have issues that confront our state that are going to have to be confronted, that we've talked about throughout this campaign. I thank you to those who have opened up their homes, welcomed me into your cities, into your counties, into your towns, into your communities as we've gone throughout this campaign, and have been so hospitable, who have been so kind, who have been so bent over backwards to make sure that we felt welcome throughout the state. I said over the last several days that I had made a promise to myself that we would run a campaign that sought to unite the state, sought to unite Republicans, Democrats, and Independents, but more importantly to me, to unite our state racially, to run a campaign in which we truthfully worked to bridge the racial divide in Mississippi. I've said it. I said at Dominion Church, I'm white and I'm country and ain't nothing I can do about it. But you can run a campaign and you can run an administration that pulls the state together.
It was obviously a much lighter mood at Governor Reeves' watch party in Flowood. Reeves told his supporters he received Presley's congratulations by phone. He said his second term focus will be on job creation, workforce development, lower taxes, and maintaining Mississippi's momentum.
Saying, thank you, Mississippi. There are a lot of people in California and New York and Massachusetts and Washington, D.C., real interested in Mississippi. To the governors of those states, I'm coming knocking on the door of all your businesses. Let's be absolutely honest. 20 years ago, when I asked you to support me as our state's chief financial officer, It took a great leap of faith of the people of Mississippi to hire me for that job. I know that over these 20 years, I have made mistakes. But I will tell you this, I have never stopped trying to earn your trust. I promise you going forward, I will work hard. I commit that I will stand firm, and I will do everything in my power to rally our fellow Mississippians. You see, Ely and I were born here. We were raised here. We stayed here. From the time we got married in November of 2001, our goal was to plant our family here where our roots were, and to do all we could to make Mississippi an even better place. I think it's fair to say we've made a difference. But I also want you to know it's fair to say that we hadn't made enough of a difference, and we're going to do even more in the next 4 years. I want you all to know that I value your trust. I am humbled by your support. I'm fired up for the next 4 years. I'm fired up because Mississippi has momentum, and this is Mississippi's time. Thank y'all, and God bless.
One of the people at Reeves' watch party was a second-term Republican governor himself, Haley Barbour. He spoke with 12 News' senior political correspondent Richard Lake about the importance of the moment.
As you look back at this campaign, Tate Reeves ran on his record. He ran on the policies that he promoted, but more importantly, ran on the results that came from those policies. Record low unemployment, highest employment in history, schools that have gone from being on the bottom to now being recognized as so improved, they call it the Mississippi Miracle. The economic development work that he's done matters. And look, the Democratic Party poured money in here like never before in our history, and it didn't get there. Tate won, and what Tate is committed to is we're going to take the success of the last 4 years and we're going to multiply on it. And that's what a governor being reelected should do, and he'll do it.
You mentioned that Brandon Presley was very well funded in this race. It still didn't work for him. Talk to me about what that means about what Mississippians want and why they chose Tate Reeves.
Well, one of the things about the Democratic campaign, about 10 or $11 million pushed down to Mississippi by the Democratic National Committee, that money came from California and New York and Washington, D.C., not because they care about Mississippi. It's because they wanted to try to see if they could break a hole in the opposition to Joe Biden and what the Democratic administration has done, and they failed. And not because Brandon Presley's a bad person, he's not. They failed because the premise was that, are you going to vote for Democrats who follow the Biden line, or are you going to follow Mississippians? Mississippians won.
When we come back, we'll hear from Dr. Eric Schmidt of Millsaps College about why Mississippi's younger voters may be uncomfortable with today's political climate. It's Mississippi Insight, only on 12 News. Dr. Eric Schmidt is a newcomer to Mississippi, but he's no stranger to politics and elections. The new professor of political science at Millsaps College spoke this week with my colleague, 12 News' Melanie Christopher, about the governor's race and more.
One day after Mississippi's contentious race for the governorship, Dr. Eric Schmidt, here in the classroom at Millsaps College on Wednesday afternoon, says he was not terribly surprised by the outcome of the election.
What surprised me more than anything was how many Democrats in the state and nationally were under the impression that Brandon Presley had a fighting chance at winning the election.
Though the elections came out pretty much how he expected them to, Dr. Schmidt says what happened is very noteworthy.
Wanted to see the Democratic Party move the needle in Mississippi. You might not want to be that disappointed today. You were talked about in the New York Times as a viable Democratic campaign for governor in the state of Mississippi, which has been understood for at least the past 20 years as being sort of on a march toward Republican Party consolidation. So whether the fact that Presley did as well as he did, despite losing, is an omen for things to come, I really don't know. But I wouldn't, if I were a Presley supporter, if I had been on the Presley campaign, I wouldn't be waking up this morning as disappointed as many of them likely are.
The professor says people are very polarized right now and very wedded to both partisan identities and issue positions that they hold on to very firmly.
What are we to do?
I don't know. I don't know. But I know that the students that I speak with are very interested in finding the answer.
They don't like it either.
No. No. Students, I've found, associate politics and political debate with hurt feelings at best and with violence at worst. They don't see politics as an opportunity for advocacy. They don't see politics as an opportunity to advance in a good faith way their own interests and policy objectives. They see it as something to be avoided because it's too controversial, it's too ugly, it's too dirty, it's too angry.
As an educator, Dr. Schmidt says his goal is to help students work through this misperception that politics is only like that, and that the solution to intergroup conflict is intergroup contact.
You need Republicans to talk to Democrats and find out that not all of them, not even most of them, are the enemy. You need Democrats to talk to Republicans and realize that in many cases they're talking about people who are just trying to figure out very, very complicated things and doing the best that they can.
That's Millsaps Professor Eric Schmidt speaking this week with Melanie Christopher. We're back in a moment. Following Tuesday's ballot shortage, the Hinds County Election Commission finally spoke out Thursday. The commission says the confusion stemmed from mistakes made in the ballot ordering process. They took full responsibility for what happened. While precincts with larger voter numbers received a small number of ballots, smaller precincts received an excessive number of ballots.
One is titled the Precinct Ballot Style Report, and the other is referenced as the Precinct Splits Ballot Style Report. So two separate reports. So in preparing the ballot order form, we use the first report, and it is that Precinct Ballot Style Report. In bottom line, and we all take account for that, the report that we should have used was the Precinct Split Ballot Style Report.
Commissioner said less than 10 of the county's 107 precincts had ballot issues. They say they hope to receive some guidance from the Secretary of State's office in order to prevent this from happening again. And Secretary Michael Watson himself offered more detail on the forms commissioners used to order those ballots. He showed us the breakdown of the different ballot styles that should have been delivered to the split precincts that saw delays. According to Secretary Watson, after the election commissioners pulled the wrong ballots, the number of ballots showed should never have been an issue. County governments are now required by law to print off enough ballots for at least 60% of registered voters in each precinct.
Now, the problem there is, look, if you get your ballot styles wrong, you could have 1,000 ballot style 1 and 10 ballot style 8s, you can't then use that extra 1,000 of ballot style 1s into the extra needed in ballot style 8. They may have very well printed off enough ballots. It just wasn't the right one. No matter which report they would have pulled, the numbers would have been very similar, maybe off just a little bit. So definitely doesn't explain what happened. These are good people, and I really appreciate the work of the Elections Commission. Sometimes mistakes happen. Unfortunately, this one's under the magnifying glass.
Secretary Watson also mentioned that there are split districts all throughout Mississippi, and that Hinds County election workers receive the same training as workers in the 81 other counties in the state. The Secretary of State's office has no investigative authority to look into matters such as these, but Secretary Watson said that he would like to have a conversation with Hinds County election commissioners to figure out what went wrong and how to avoid it in the future. And we'll be right back. If you have comments or questions about today's show or a suggestion for an interview or segment, just drop us a line. Email our producers. The address is news@WJTV.com. And we'll be back next weekend with more of the political and current affairs coverage that you demand. I'm Byron Brown from all of us here at 12 News. Make it a great weekend.